back. We're here for a series review of DCU's Creature Commandos. This is the first installment in the new DC universe established by James Gunn, DC Studios. I'm here not alone. I'm here with Ronin Unchained, also with Phil from Unfiltrated. I hope I pronounced that right.
Unfiltered, but
Unfiltered. Oh,
good, man.
Unfiltered. Got you. But yeah, guys, it's gonna be our non-spoiler review of the series. We have seen all episodes. The show will be premiering December 5th, I believe. Yeah, so it's be weekly episodes. But I think it's a total of 8 or 7? Seven. Okay, 7. And but yeah, we'll give you our thoughts again, non-spoiler. You can follow our platforms down in the link below. All these people have their information down in the description box below. Also get Ronin into 1000 before Christmas. Yeah, we can get there, and also subscribe to Phil's platform as well. All right, so first initial reactions. I'm gonna start with the biggest critic of
You're
James
funny.
Gunn.
You're funny. You're funny.
Yeah, what was your initial thoughts after watching this entire season?
I mean, I liked it. I will happily say that. I mean, as you mentioned, I'm fairly critical of Mr. James Gunn. I don't hate the man. Okay, let's get that off the air right now. I do not hate him. I don't know him personally. I think he's, for all intents and purposes, he's a great creator. He does what he does best, and he does it well. Just certain things that he does do not, jive with me personally. Me and Ronin talk about this stuff all the time. Like, we go back and forth in friendly terms about this, but I enjoyed it. I really did like it. And that's probably due to the fact, there was no Peacemaker in this, which makes me so happy. But seriously, like, I like when James Gunn does the true oddball shit. I like that a lot. Are we allowed to say shit and stuff like that?
Yeah, you get.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, I really did like The Bride, Dr. Phosphorus, G.I. Robot. I loved everything with G.I. Robot. I thought all of that was great. As far as setting the tone for the universe, I don't necessarily think I would say it that way. I would say this is more like what this world has to offer in terms of, not full tonality, but like this is just one piece of maybe a bigger puzzle that may fit together sequentially, maybe unsequentially. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I really just liked the way in which this show just is in a DC universe, to say the least. Like, there are some really fun nods, there's some really cool surprises, and by the end of it, I was like, okay, I want to see more of this. This is very intriguing. These characters are all very unique in their own way. I think each character has a great voice behind them in terms of performance. I even went as far as to say, like, I would love to see these characters pop up in live action, i.e., like, we know we're getting Rick Flag, obviously, in the upcoming Superman film, as well as Peacemaker Season 2. I would love to see more of The Bride. I would love to see more of Dr. Phosphorus, whether or not, Dr. Phosphorus is played by Alan Tudyk, because he's literally everywhere in the DC universe at this point. He's playing a couple characters in the shows that's been confirmed. But yeah, I liked it. I really liked it, and I think it would definitely be higher on my James Gunn creative projects ranking list, even though he didn't necessarily direct any of it. He just wrote it, and this was all done by Bobby Pill's animation. This was executive produced by Dean Lorey. Like, he only wrote it, which is cool, but like, as far as like an overall thing, I enjoyed it. It didn't necessarily like move a needle for me as far as like what to expect from the rest of the universe, because I'm not really sure what to expect for the rest of the universe. But as like a first entry or first chapter into chapter 1 of Gods and Monsters, I thought it was fun. It was a fun time. There were a few things where I was just like, nope, didn't like that. But that's kind of par for the course for me. If you guys know me, you know how I am. So yeah.
We're gonna get into those like negatives, because there are negatives. It's not perfect. It's like anything is. But Ronin, what was your thoughts? I watched it with you. We both had the same reaction. At least with the later half of the season. But what was your experience with it, man?
To think that he could pull something off with this title and make this for me at least, fun, wholesome, bloody, sexy, and emotional is just I just again, and I think to echo Phil's, I'm like, I don't think this is the tone we're gonna expect for all of DC, but damn it, man, does the heart right in it, and it's like, and for a lot of folks, it's C-D-list characters. This is what I'm loving. That I'm like, if this is what we're getting with C-D-list characters, I can only imagine the unlimited potentials that the A-list and B-list characters can get. But yeah, I love the series. And I think whether intentional or unintentional, it's a bold move that the first official DCU project is in animation. It's a show. The fact that James Gunn wrote it, but he was open to collaboration with people and trusted a unique band of actors and actresses to bring these characters to life. And all I'm gonna say is that, like, I think people are gonna have to really look at what Indira Varma is doing as the Bride, what David Harbour does as Frankenstein, and what Zoe Chow does as Nina Mazursky. And again, like Phil, GI Robot was a delight. But yeah, keep an eye out with these characters because there's so much depth to them. And this is what I'm saying about writing, where like he got 25 minutes to tell a story in a span of 7 episodes,
give or take.
And
yeah.
I felt it. I felt the small moments, looks, shots. I think the studio, the French studio behind this animation, did an amazing, spectacular job. If you like music and you also want to find new stuff to add to your playlist, I think the Creature Commandos soundtrack is going to be blowing up the charts, if you will, for the upcoming weeks, in my opinion. And yeah, like right now, you could tell there's an impact with this show when I go back to watch the Bride of Frankenstein movie, and it hits me more and more now. And yeah, I think this is, in my opinion, a good win for DC fans, and it just broadens the scope of where we can go.
You muted, Mike.
Yeah, I am muted. Yeah, no, because I absolutely agree. Like, and I appreciate when Phil, you're talking about, like, do I believe every project moving forward is going to have this specific tone? No, and if it does, that would definitely not go well. Because that just each character has a different tone associated with them, especially if you're trying to be this, taking out the creative liberties with comic adaptations, but still trying to stay true to their core. Not every character is going to fit the tone of what it was established in the show. But when I watched this, I had a huge smile on my face, and I haven't had this feeling for DC in a minute. Only because it's like I felt like, okay, I'm actually seeing seeds being planted here, and actually the fact that like creative have that intentionality to detail, but also not treating me as a fan like an idiot. Like I know I grew up with DC characters, Justice League Unlimited, Batman made series, Static Shock, Batman Beyond, all these shows, right? That been for a lot of us been our core foundation into comics, as kids and everything. But also, for some people, the most primus are versions of those characters we know to date. And what I felt with this is that I'm seeing a good direction what he's establishing here, but also again going to what he's good at. He's good at taking these unknown characters and establishing, hey, listen, you thought like character like the Weasel, right? Which that episode, along with other stuff which we'll get into, that was so traumatic. I watched that with Busy, and you'll see our reaction on his subscribe to Busy Braun. You'll find it our reaction to that. That was so tragic. But like you're looking like you're seeing Suicide Squad back in 2020, and like, oh man, what was this character like an idiot? And it's like, no, this is probably one of the most tragic characters part of this team. And the fact that he has that type of care for a C or D list character, imagine what he's gonna do with like the top creme of the DC universe. right? And so that's where it makes me really excited though. But what was your thoughts? You mentioned like you have favorites like Dr. Phosphorus, but who were like one of your favorites you out of the team that you felt was their story was done well in this show? Phil?
Oh, GI Robot, without question.
Mm-hmm.
I loved what they did with GI Robot. I 100% love what they did with that character. I love the flashbacks they showcased of how he ended up on the team. I love his mannerisms. I love the way he just goes, "Oh, friend Nina. Oh, I want to kill Nazis." I love everything about GI Robot in the show. He is without question my favorite character. He's a standout for me. I love him to death. I want the damn Funko. Like I hope that there is a project somewhere down the line that I get to see GI Robot in live action, because I would just love to see that character just murk and murder Nazis in live action format, personally. But as far as like maybe a number two, if you're like, yeah, favorite character would probably be GI Robot. Second favorite would probably be Dr. Phosphorus, and I guess at that point by default, my favorite episodes would be, without spoiling anything at all, would be episodes 3 and episode 6. Episode 4 is a fun one, but I think for me, it's episode 3 and episode 6. Without a doubt, they are my favorite episodes of the series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Miguel?
Favorite episodes? This is it's a good show, and I can't right now. I'm having a hard time choosing favorites because episode 2 just comes in swinging. Like episode 1 is like a nice soft setup, and then 2 just comes swinging, and then episode 7, the ending episode, it's what the show's about, so what these characters are about, and what James is saying. So I think for me, man, this is good. I think the Bride, Nina, and GI are my favorites. But then again, I've never seen Frankenstein like this before. I've never seen him like this before, which is a cool and a fresh thing to do in this day and age. But through those characters in these episodes, I just want to tell folks this, and and I have my own review coming down the pipeline, and I'll go more to length with this topic. But what this show reminds me of is what people can do with the X-Men, or people could do with Star Wars or Star Trek, where you're entertaining me and yet you're telling me something. You're telling me how you feel about the world. There are so many times in this episode or the series that James is telling me how he feels about the world, whether through an act, through a shot, through a line of dialogue. It's just a marvelous thing that, like, I look back at it and I'm like, wow. In a show about a second alternative version, if you will, the Suicide Squad, Task Force M, James is saying how he views stuff going around in the world and how, you could be better, is a remarkable thing. And I just, yeah, man, once everybody sees the episodes, you'll know what I mean. And I'll go into more depths of the choice of words and shots. It's just gorgeous.
Yeah, I felt from like Dr. Phosphorus' backstory was like, I felt, I'd say I resonate too, because I thought he was just a cool character too, because he was giving that Atomic Skull type of vibe to it, and I was like, when I first saw it, I was like, was that not Atomic Skull? No, it was a different character, but it was giving those vibes of that. But also I forgot what was the fish.
Nina Mazursky.
Right, yeah. She was like, her character definitely, when you see her arc in this season of this show, definitely what I felt most relatable to, which, her going to school, her being born with a deficiency, and stuff that. Like,
she's literally a fish out of water.
Literally.
She's literally a fish out of water. That just dawned on me. I was just, as you were saying that, I was like, wow, she really is like the epitome of fish out of water. Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild. It's funny. You mentioned character arcs, and I'm like, I think we're all in agreement. And this is like going to toe a line, but I'm not going to say exactly what. I think people are going to be surprised at Cersei's motivation, because she is the antagonist of this series here. And when you find out what her motivations are, you're going to be like,
damn,
what?
Yeah.
We'll get there. We will indeed get there.
Yeah, because speaking that you said that, I want to kind of get into one negative that you have with this show, and then because then I can actually geek out about that because it involves Cersei. But so Phil, yes, there is negatives with this show. I felt that as much as there was a line of this show in terms of how gory it can be, that it can be from between The Boys and Invincible, where Invincible has a lot of gore and violence, but The Boys have a lot of sexual type of connotation to it, where things kind of get into a more grotesque part of it. And this show, in terms of my level, is kind of like right in the middle of it, because like you have a mix of sexual tension, but still is like nothing like Boys level type of violence or something like that. That's even though this show definitely takes a dark turn in many different areas. But Phil, what was your negatives about this show?
There was one moment in the second episode that I just went, nope, don't like this, not a fan, this is weird, it toes a line, and I just couldn't. And it happens with the bride character, and I'm just like, nope, don't like that.
Yeah,
at all. I did not like that. I did not like the way that they handled it. I thought it was just very it's in his wheelhouse, definitely.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
I think you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's very much pertaining to the bride's origin story, and I'm just like, nope. And of course, there is James Gunn's strand of humor throughout this series, and there was one moment, I think in the first episode, I was like, well, okay, that tracks. It involves Weasel, and it involves a thing happening where he does a thing in the car, but that's besides the point. Anyway, no, like there is James Gunn humor littered throughout, and for the most part, I found it actually kind of reserved, where in other projects, I'm just like, nope, not a fan of this. Nope. But there is one thing in the second episode pertaining to the bride that I definitely was just like, nah, this is and to Mike's point, like it's very much in line with The Boys in terms of like, I get it why it's happening, but man, that is just fucking nope.
Yeah. Now, and again, we're trying to not cross spoiler territory, but like again, you're gonna see the first two episodes, not too long from watching the video. So so you'll know exactly what we're talking about. It's not really a show you really want to watch, have your kids watch, and stuff like that.
No.
Miguel, what was your thoughts on this, or one negative you have with the show?
I'm really like, and again, it's been a minute since I've seen it, but like, I'm really like, for me, having a hard time finding a negative, if you will. I mean, I guess it could be a compliment that like I wish the episodes were longer and there was more episodes, because I had such a blast with it. But then again, I like when shows are reserved and leave you wanting more. And maybe spending more time with the characters and the backstories. But having said that, I the amount of timing and pacing for me was so good that like I get it, I understood it, and it helped me see them differently halfway through the series than I did when they first show up, or the second episode. I'm like, okay, I kind of see why they're behaving this way, or why there's this matchup between these characters and these characters and whatnot. Again, folks, there's stuff that you're like, archetypes, if you will, that you're like, whoa, I didn't expect them to go this way, if you will. I say that like, I'll say this about the humor. I love James Gunn's style. Having said that, to this day, there are golden moments in Volume 2 of Guardians, but to me, that's my least favorite thing he's done out of the big production stuff he's done. The humor really was like at points very detrimental to that film. But what I like is that since that film, you see his matureness and reservedness with some humor. Sometimes he goes back to it a little bit, but it's not as for me as difficult or stood out as much as in Volume 2. And yeah, at points that like in a ridiculous circumstances, there's space to laugh, and yet you're a bit like, wait, this is effed up. Why am I laughing at this? This is messed up. But yeah, as of now, I'd have to rewatch the series again to see if there's any stuff that does stand out more. But for me, we didn't have that much issues.
Okay, no, I hear you. But with that, as I mentioned to Phil's point about going to after wrapping up this review about how does this show have implications of terms of its state and continuity, because there's also this is a thing where there is things that are as James Gunn is moving forward with DC, as we have a new slate coming with James Gunn Superman coming out in July of next year, that we also have the continuity of the Suicide Squad, Peacemaker season 1, and also this show. But even though this show is the first established DC universe project, continuity wise it's more like the third or fourth type of piece of content, because you also got Blue Beetle continuing as well, so that's another thing. Right. But how do we feel in terms of him explaining, because he mentioned that anything that's mentioned in this show is from the previous installments is canon, anything not is not canon. How do you feel in terms of seeing how they're referencing stuff that happened before? We have returning characters like Amanda Waller, played by Viola Davis, who's getting her own show, by the way. We also have Economos from Peacemaker season 1, and so yeah, what was your thoughts on that, Phil?
Honestly, when James Gunn's talking about the continuity of it all, it kind of reminds me of the way Greg Weisman approaches Young Justice, in terms of like, there are things that happened in previous other incarnations you may be familiar with, and they happened, quote, parallel with what we're doing, but we're also going to try and do our own spin on things. Case in point, like when it comes to the Suicide Squad, when it comes to Peacemaker, you know, James Gunn has said, like, you know, since Rick Flag kind of talks about his kid a little bit in you know, Creature Commandos, that to me is like, oh, okay, well then that aspect of the Suicide Squad remains canon to what James Gunn is doing in the DCU. And even like, I think that in terms of like Blue Beetle, for example, the general gist of like the things that happened in that movie and the fact that you have Joel Maraduena portraying the character, like all of that will be consistently kept through. It's just like, you know, the minute fine details of it all might be just a little bit reworked or whatever to better fit the continuity. And then in terms of Peacemaker, you know, he's said, like, you know, everything except the Justice League thing is canon, and we're going to address that in season 2. I mean, I even asked him on Instagram, and fortunately, like, he responded to me. I was like, you know, how exactly are you going to address this? And he was like, you just have to watch the show and find out. I said, okay, that's a fair answer. But in terms of just overall lore and continuity and what is canon, and I think headcanon is all entirely subjective and preferential, but again, just from an overall standpoint, again, I'm just going to reiterate, to me it feels like he's taking kind of a page out of Greg Weisman's book, even unintentional or intentional, in just that, you know, things may have happened in other incarnations that you have seen before, and they may be in a sense canon going forward, but the stories we are telling are going to be just that. We are trying to tell a certain kind of story with these characters. Like, I'd be very curious to see just how much of, like, you know, Batman's canonical history makes it into Brave and the Bold by the time, you know, he runs into Damian. Like, who, like, is obviously we're probably maybe going to get Nightwing, maybe a Red Hood. I'm not really sure there. Like, where's Wonder Woman in this universe? Where's Aquaman, Flash? All of these characters. And honestly, when it comes to like who's showing up, if you look at his slate, it seems like he's kind of avoiding characters that just had, like, you know, a big screen presence. So there is no Wonder Woman project outside of like Paradise Lost, but even then she's not in it. There's no Flash project. There's no Aquaman project, but we're getting a Lantern show with both Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, which is very cool. I don't think that's been done. That has not been done. We've only seen Hal Jordan one time in one movie played by Ryan Reynolds, and everyone tries their best to forget that film, even though I like it. It's fine. It's not that bad. But my point is like, we get when it comes to Creature Commandos in this world, you actually, as a DC fan, as a longtime DC fan, you actually feel like you're getting paid off. Like all of it actually does feel, for once, it's connected. There are deep cuts. There are some cool surprises. And I honestly think that, you know, when it comes to continuity, it's all about, like, you know, certain things may have happened. More specifically, this really just does kind of apply to Suicide Squad, rather the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. Like, things from those projects probably will carry over. And it's not like we haven't seen stuff like this before. I mean, bringing it all the way back to, you know, the Batman franchise, the first 4 films had the same guy playing Alfred, Michael Goff. He played Alfred in all 4 of those movies, and there were 3 different Batmen. Recasting characters isn't nothing new. Like, we've seen stuff like this before. So yeah, to me, really, it's just all about, like, I guess for me personally, I'm at the point where I'm just like, yeah, continuity's continuity. Just tell me a damn good story. That's what I'm here for. At this point, I've gotten, like, the cream of the crop. I have my preference of, like, what I think is, like, really great DC projects. So at this point, I'm just like, show me what you have. Like, show me a good story. And I will say, just like Creature Commandos, it was a good story. It was fun. It was a fun time. Give me more. I want to see where these characters go next.
Yeah. Miguel?
And Phil knows this, but, like, I love the Suicide Squad. I really, really dug Peacemaker. And the fact that those are carryouts in this show just makes sense. And I'll say this. If you're a DC fan, this is the Creature Commando story. It's focused on them. You're going to get their deaths. You're going to care. You're going to cheer, cry, everything. But if you're a DC fan, just keep an eye out on the TV that the characters are watching, or something they hear on the radio, or something, or somebody they bump into. That's all I'm going to say. Just, like, keep that open.
Yes.
Because even at points, I was just going, is that from something that has never been adapted? But, like, I know because I'm a nerd. And I think something to echo to Mike, what he was saying is just like, some stuff you might be familiar with, some stuff that you might not, and sometimes just being presented in a moment tells you exactly what is in front of you without exposition, if you will. And I think that marks a good storyteller, in my opinion, great storyteller, and also a nerd. Like, there's you know, again, people might be preference of style, of versions of DC stuff, but one thing people cannot deny is that James Gunn, and from what I've seen, the crew he has around him are nerds and are willing to go to the depths of DC Comics, to the bins that nobody's paying attention, and let's pull a character that no one has never adapted and probably never would under another regime. Let's just do it, and let's see what we can make out of that character. And then we'll take care of the big names when we get there, because again, it's that thing of restraint. Everybody knows Batman's origin, everybody knows Superman's origin, everybody knows Wonder Woman's. Like, it's like, we'll get there when we get there, but focus on these group that you probably would never have cared for, and just keep an eye out for stuff. And that's what's a sweet notion when you're like, it's the Rick Dalton thing, you know. Oh, I know what that means.
Yeah, and bingo. And that's, like, just to wrap things up on that, it's like, much as I really want to say this, but again, we have a week until we actually get into the nitty gritty of all this. So it's like, yeah, you'll see us actually geek out and have a few episodes, because there are moments to geek out in this. But yeah, because you mentioned, like, characters like Cersei, and again, there's a particular moment in episode 4. I keep highlighting for folks. Episode 4. And see, but aside from that, as you mentioned, like, stuff like small details you hear about the universe building, even like it's hinting, you know, on terms of other projects that we haven't really heard much about, but we know were announced in his original statement, and then it gets referenced, like episode 1, and it's like, wait, we're talking about this now? That's like, okay. And then also stuff like not treating fans like we're idiots. It's like, you know, I know some of us can be, but I'm saying, like, with the knowing as a DC fan, like, you know what location we are, we can just show you a scenery and you know exactly what city, what place we are, and or, you know, what character might show up, what not show up, or at least this is where this character has been, and I'm really tiptoeing away from it, but like, that's where I'm like, thank you, James, thank you for not treating me like an idiot. It's like, and that's the part where it's like we don't have to keep going back to square one and reinventing the wheel. And that's where I feel moving forward that he like the DC universe is in good hands. But mentioning Phil's point, yes, there's some things where it's like I think if he takes feedback from from this, even when Superman comes out, when there's gonna be some problems, and there will be problems because nothing's perfect. And that if he actually able to receive constructive criticism and like, okay, I can change and course correct, then we'll see how moving forward in terms of deciding whether this will be a full success or not. But we've been down this road before of people trying to announce DC projects and stuff, and here we are, right? But like I said, with this show, starting with this and giving a good tease before 2025 when it gets the full launch with Superman, this is a good start. That's all I got to say. But I'll give you guys what's your guys' final ratings for the show, and then we can wrap things up. Phil?
I'm going to give it a solid 8 out of 10, honestly. Like animation is fantastic. The story is well done. There are like one or two things where I was just like, no. But other than that, like really solid series. I if they were to do more DC animation, I want to see it in this animated style for sure. Mm-hmm. I want to see more stuff from Bobby Pills and DC. Like I want to see a more collaborative process between the two of them going forward for sure.
Yeah, Miguel?
This is one of my favorite shows of the year. One of my favorite shows of the year, and it's ironic that probably my top 10, top 5 shows of the year, most of them are animated. So that speaks to strength of animation and the show. And yeah, I think I would go 10 out of 10. I think again, I have to rewatch to see. This is what brings it down a bit, but like the whole time I was like, I remember being like, damn, I finished it. Now I gotta wait years to see if they're ever gonna bring this up and whatnot, and I hope they do. But yeah, I go 10 out of 10. It is a unique thing to add to DC adaptations, DCU. And again, just to say this, folks, go read comics. Go read comics. The more this stuff is printed out, the more you know, and the funner it'll be. But yeah, I love this show.
Yeah, I'm a echo with Phil and you, but I'll give this an 8 out of 10. This is one of the most surprises I had this year. Is it the best show that I've had for 2024? No. I still have a few that are above this, but this was a big surprise and a happy surprise because I'm happy that I was able to end this year off, well, at least with as a DC and a Marvel fan, I can say, hey, at the end of the year, we had this. This was a good year, or at least our starting point for going into next year, which is going to be a whole bunch of content for 2025 on all different genres and different IP and everything. But yeah, I give this an 8 out of 10. This was enjoyable. This was funny. It had a lot of heart. Definitely had a lot of trauma that was displayed in a very beautiful way, tragic way for some of these characters. But again, for the first part of Gods and Monsters, James, I give you a thumbs up. But yeah, guys, that will conclude our review for Creature Commandos. I'll make sure I link you the guys' platforms in the description box below. But make sure you hit the subscribe button, comment, like, and share. You'll see these guys on the platform. Again, you also see me on their platforms too in the near future and everything. All right, y'all. Till next time, we'll see you out. Peace. We are out.